We made this.
Hello and welcome to Pick a Disc. I am your host Matt Latham, and this is the podcast where someone picks a disc to talk about for whatever reason they want to. And today I am glad to bring on Robyn from the Reaction Brats podcast to talk about Strangeways, Here We Come by the Smiths. And, you know, as usual, we'll talk about the album, talk about the songs, talk about the band, blah, 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 you know, all that kind of things that happened in all the other episodes. You know, best way to find out what we talk about is to keep on listening. And once you finish listening, and if you're like, oh, I quite like this podcast, I want to carry on, feel free to follow us on all your podcast apps of choice, or, you know, on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, under Pick a Disc. Join the Discord if you really want to, say hello, you know, etc., etc., etc. And just, again, opinion fraud. Commit opinion fraud and lie and say we're decent enough to be 5 stars worthy, because, as always, that means other people can listen to the podcast and then also lie and say we're also 5 stars. It's a cascading thing. So I think that's all the stuff that I have to say. So let's talk to Robyn. Just as we were... Oh, hang on. I need to turn my phone off.
It's podcast rule number 1.
Yes. Podcast faux pas. Oh dear. Yes, my professionalism, my lack of professionalism aside.
I do it all the time.
Yeah, lack of professionalism aside. With another episode of Pick a Disc opening with a kind of ill-advised vibration in my phone. I'm here with one of the Reaction Brats, Robyn. So how you doing, Robyn?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm really good, thank you very much. Yeah, over here the weather is slightly starting to improve, slightly getting warmer. I was able to do a run this afternoon without having to have a sweatshirt on. I was able to do, which is like the first time in about 5 months I was able to do that. So, so about yourself?
We're not quite here. We're not quite there yet here in Ontario. It's very cold. We had a little bit of snow this morning, but we are all very hopeful that pretty soon we're going to have some warmer temperatures. We're waiting.
Okay, yeah. We just had the closest thing we had to a blizzard where places of work had to shut like about a week or so ago because of sudden snow that no one saw coming. So.
Right.
But and I'm going to try and avoid going through the kind of the monotony or the mundane of British culture and talking about the weather, and instead perhaps talking about a band that's probably also moaning about British culture and things about that.
I love it though.
Yeah. Oh man, great! It's great when I accidentally segue into something. Yeah, Robyn's here to talk about an album, not the weather, as much as the Brit in me would love to talk about the weather for the next hour in a bit. But here to talk about an album. So Robyn, please tell the lovely listeners the disc that you've picked for us today.
I have picked Strangeways, Here We Come by the Smiths.
Yes, and why have you picked this album?
I've picked this record because it's my favorite record of all time, really, is the short of it. And the Smiths are just my band, you know? They are my favorite band. This is my favorite record by my favorite band. And I just thought that this would be, if I'm going to come on a podcast and talk about one record, this is the one I need to talk about.
Yeah, so you're just like in the back saying, talk about me. It's me you want to talk about. And
That's right. I'm over here.
Yeah.
Don't forget about me.
Yeah. How did you discover the existence of the Smiths?
Oh, wow. Well, for me, I discovered Morrissey first when I was 14. So by the time I had discovered the Smiths, they had been broken up for a number of years. Morrissey was on Kill Uncle by the time I had discovered him. That was his recent record, his current record. So that was record number 3 by the time I had found out who he was, and since this kind of music came into my sphere. And I fell in love. I fell madly in love, and I felt this connection to music that I had never felt before. And I was in grade 10, and I was impressionable.
So what age was that? So what's grade 10?
14.
14, so that would be...
I was in high school.
High school, okay.
High school here is grade 9. At the time, it was grade 9 to 13. and then you head off to post-secondary, to university or college. So I was young and impressionable and started to wear black, and I was going to be a vegetarian, and I was, all things Morrissey I had taken on as my persona. And so, I had just connected with it, and it had, I don't know, I felt like he was writing to me specifically in a way that no one else had been or was. And so lucky me when I was able to then have this whole back catalog, not only of 2 other Morrissey records, but then this whole back catalog of Smith's records, which, came in little pieces, just came in songs, I'd say, songs like This Charming Man and The Queen is Dead and Cemetery Gates, all of those kinds of popular Smith singles that I was just getting in little bits. Yeah, that's how I first really, that was how I first heard them. And it was just through friends, through people that I was hanging out with that were a little bit older than me and that were influencing what I was listening to at the time, because that was what they were listening to.
Okay, so when you was kind of getting into the Smiths via Morrissey, how long did it take? So how long did it take you to find the Smiths? Then was it a while? Was it like I need everything? Because this was before kind of LimeWire or Kazaa, so you wasn't able just to suddenly go and grab everything at once.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I would say this was like 1991. So this was long before there was any internet. So, but it was, it didn't take me long. I was very hungry for it, for sure. And I was buying cassette tapes. It was before CDs. Mm-hmm. I wasn't buying vinyl, but I was buying cassette tapes. And it was a lot of mixtapes. I had a lot of people making me mixtapes of just, here's some Smith songs you should listen to, and also here's some Cure songs, and here's some, just all that genre. Here's some New Order. Here's some Soft Cell, all that kind of music that I hadn't heard before. So it didn't take me long to get all of these Smith singles, but then I was started to buy Smith's cassettes, and it was the first Smith album that I was obsessed with first, for sure. That one I was listening to obsessively.
So that wasn't Strangeways, it was...
They're self-titled.
The self-titled one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Noticing a kind of trend of very British kind of 80s in like the precursor to what we probably retroactively call in like 80s indie, but like I kind of rock, but very 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 kind of like British kind of sad. No, I'm not a fan of the word sad boy, but the word sad boy is something I've seen being thrown around when talking about the Smiths. So I'm sensing a common theme with some of those bands that you were talking about. So you had Robert Smith, Ian Curtis, and no, it was, New Order was post Joy Division, wasn't it?
Sure. Yeah.
So,
but there's still, sad music is still my favorite music. And I think, before this time, I wasn't really listening to, I was listening to the radio. I was just kind of listening to whatever was on radio. And I was listening to whatever kind of my older brother was listening to, which wasn't really anything that I'm listening to now. But I'm still, like I said, the Smiths are still my favorite. I just bought tickets to go see The Cure. They're in Toronto in a couple of months. I'm still listening to Joy Division and New Order, and I'm still listening to all of that kind of stuff. And it connected with me at a very young age. And I'm still listening to it, and I'm still loving it. And I have a sad black boy. Little heart, and I cling to this music.
So the sad British boy within is like,
he's in there. Yeah.
So where did that take you in terms of music listening? Then did it take you to look for even more stuff further afield, or as music's kind of evolved? Do you listen to much like modern music? Have you been? So what kind of music is it stuff that reminds you of that, or do you think it reminds you of that, or stuff that you feel influenced by that, or do you not bother with modern music?
I really wish that I could say I listen to a lot of modern music. but I don't really. I listen to like a lot of those bands that I just listed. I'm still listening to. As I was growing up, I got into a lot of American indie stuff, college rock. Like I'd listen to a lot of Lemonheads and Pavement and but then again in the like later 90s, I went back to the Brit pop stuff. You know, I don't know if you guys would have called it Brit pop, but Suede
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you know, like all of that. Like I
Oasis and
loved
Blur and
sure, Oasis and Blur and who else? The Charlatans,
Pulp and like
Pulp,
Pulp and stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
like totally got into all of that kind of stuff. And then so it's kind of been a bit of American stuff and a lot of British stuff. I don't know
Yeah.
why the British stuff I was just able to connect to. I did.
So your heart automatically comes back to UK. Okay. And so when you were before we start recording, you mentioned that you spent some time in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
Was did you have the opportunity? Did you kind of seize the opportunity to try and get as much of the music as possible back then? Or
Yeah, so we were there in 97. I was there with a couple of friends and we stayed in Aldershot
mm-hmm.
with a friend's grandmother and just took the train into London most days. And just saw a lot of the city, went to a lot of the sites that we wanted to see. I mean, this was 25 years ago, I think, maybe more now, but it was 97. So it was a long time ago. And a lot of stuff I don't really remember exactly what we saw and what we did, except I do remember going to the Reading Festival that year. And we went to V97 that year too. So we saw a lot of cool bands. We saw Suede, we saw Blur, we saw I don't even remember Verve. We saw the Verve that year, which was great. Yeah, I mean, those 2 weekends were the weekends why we went. That was the full purpose. We bought our tickets here and made sure that that was why we went there. We were just fully immersed in Britpop at that time of our lives. So
just like gorging on just like surrounded by it and just like living the.
oh yeah, give it to me. Give it to us.
Yeah.
Give it all of it. You know, we just could take in as much as we could. And at that age, when you're 20 years old, you know, that was my whole life. That was, you know, we worked to make the money for those tickets for the plane tickets, and that was it. We didn't have any real responsibilities at that age. We just wanted the music.
Mm-hmm.
We have been thinking, my husband and I, to fly to the UK maybe this summer, but it would be more to see Manchester and do a little Smiths tour and a New Order, Joy Division tour and, you know, see some of those sites, which, you know, it would be, I think, fun and important to do now.
Yeah, so the kind of like cultural, spiritual heart lies in particularly in the kind of northwest Manchester area of the 80s and stuff. It's nice to know. And nice to know the British invasion, well, the second/third/fourth or whatever British invasion it was, kind of ventured north of the continent as well. So for those who don't know who the Smiths are, the Smiths were a kind of rock band formed in Manchester in 1982. They comprised of the singer Morrissey, guitarist Johnny Marr, the bassist Andy Rourke, and drummer Mike Joyce. Morrissey and Marr formed the band's songwriting partnership and are regarded as one of the most important acts to emerge from the 1980s British independent scene. They released, I think, 4 albums, a bunch of EPs. A lot of their kind of more well-known songs weren't on albums. In 1987, there was tensions between them that led to break up. Then there were whole lawsuits over royalties, and a whole bunch of other stuff that we're going to briefly get into a bit later on. But yeah, the Smiths are. I've got a strong feeling that the majority of anyone who is listening to this will probably know who the Smiths are, or at least have heard of the Smiths. In terms of my history with them, I was around. I felt like I got into them quite late. Well, to say late. It was the mid 2000s, which is late in comparison. But I knew the name. I didn't really know the songs more or less. because again, my kind of as long term listeners know, my music taste has gone through a very weird thing. But I think at the time, I think around 2005, it was new. Actually, no, it was New Year's. It was New Year's Eve, 31st December 2005, where I think I was having a conversation with my uncle Alan, because we was at his house for a New Year's Eve, and we was having a conversation about music, and he was mentioning it, and I was saying about this like at the time I was very much into, or on the verge of, my kind of Scandinavian indie phase. I was listening to a bunch of indie synth bands from like Sweden and Norway and all that kind of stuff. So I was trying to show him all the kind of stuff, and he's like, and in the most kind of Black Country / Birmingham accent goes, "Are you word of the Smiths?" And he goes like, I think so. Isn't one of their songs the Charm theme tune? Which was my cultural reference point for the time. All I knew is that How Soon Is Now, or a cover of it, was the theme tune to Charmed. And I goes, I recognise the name, and anything goes like, yeah, where the Morrissey? And he goes, the name's familiar. He's not related to Neil Morrissey, is he? Yeah, which is a really bad joke that a few people are going to hit me for. And he goes, well, listen to this. So he runs over and gives me this 2-disc CD. I was trying to see if I might still have it somewhere. I can't remember. It might be behind me. But he gave me this like Best of the Smiths CD, which was 2 CDs long, two CDs. And he started playing the first song, and it opened with this Charming Man, and he's like saying like, give it a listen. And like the first bit of Charming Man starts da 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 da, and I'm like, oh, it's all right. And then he pretty much like forced me to have the CD and take it back with him. And then the start of 2006. Like, I was listening to this CD, I'm like, oh, this is pretty good, and found myself just carrying on listening to it, and so there's about, like, almost 30 odd songs on it, and just found myself getting, like, really into it, and I'm like, actually, these are really, really good, and then used kind of things like LimeWire to kind of complete the albums, and starting venturing towards kind of Morrissey's kind of solo stuff, and I think at the time, it was his 2004 album, English Blood. Is it English Blood?
Oh yeah, English Blood, Irish Heart.
Yeah,
Irish Blood, English Heart. Something like that.
I think it was that one. I remember getting that album, and then the Best of Morrissey, and just indulging into that, and I'm like, at one point I was like really into Smiths, and one point like I ended up just getting really obsessed for like the next couple of years, just listening to that, and just getting into them, and occasionally will still kind of like listen to quite a few of the songs, and There Is a Light That Never Goes Out is like one of my all-time favourite songs of all time. Yeah, I love The Queen Is Dead. And I think before we carry on as well, I think we have briefly chat about this as well, but I think as I've gotten older and the band members have gotten older, and again, for longer term listeners, are probably waiting for me to get to this kind of I've often referenced Morrissey as kind of like a recurring joke of musicians that I've kind of gone off slightly. And I think before we continue, I might have to just state the fact that Morrissey has gotten to a point where a lot of what he's been vocal about is very conflicting to what my personal views are.
Sure.
It's like, I'm not going to get too much into it, but there are like at times he's kind of been quoted, made comments that almost incited violence against certain people.
Right.
And he's also been very vocally supporting of the UK of a party called UKIP, and its then leader of a guy called Nigel Farage, and Nigel Farage is a very kind of right wing, anti-immigrant kind of like anti-immigrant, anti-immigration, basically anti-foreigner party and stuff, which led to. And eventually, that party was one of the key supporters of Brexit and the leaving of the European Union. And I've always been a kind of pro-EU kind of person. And,
sure.
So he's often, and he's made so many other kind of weird and off-kilter comments that have to the point where I often now refer to the Smiths as Johnny Marr's band, or Morrissey as the vocalist of Johnny Marr's band. But and I kind of really kind of. it's really kind of a weird conflict in terms of I really like the Smiths, and Morrissey in the 80s was very much like for the working class, very much kind of like a vocal warrior for a movement of people.
Yeah.
But then I think as he's grown older, he's kind of shifted and changed. So I'm not gonna kind of delve on that bit. I'm gonna say kind of like focus on Morrissey from the 80s. But I feel like I had to kind of say that.
No, I agree. I appreciate that, and I agree. He's problematic in yeah. I don't know if it's his views or what he's spewing out, or I've always kind of it's difficult. He's a difficult man to love.
Yeah, like
And
he's like he's always kind of a showman. He's got like a kind of showman. He feels like he's always a character, but then the character and him, I think him are kind of melded into one.
yeah,
So he's always been very outspoken.
he has, and I don't know what to. I mean, he's just kind of, in my opinion, said what he thinks will get a rise out of people, and I don't know what he believes and what he doesn't believe. And there's definitely a line to cross for that he has crossed. I think he's definitely crossed it. And, I don't, I just, yeah, I agree with you. It's problematic and he's a difficult one.
Yeah, so
yes.
he's like a use slightly stronger language. He's a bit of a bellend who writes good songs. So, but I think,
Absolutely.
but 80s more. I've always said that like I often kind of like to come up with like a game, particularly friends or particularly people who I kind of know the music taste to. I call it the festival clash game, where like you can you see someone and you say, oh, if you was a festival and so was on one stage and so was on another stage, and there was on the same time, who'd you see? And it's like a time, like for example, if you had like Aladdin Sane era David Bowie and like the Talking Heads in like Stop Making Sense era, which one would you go and see? And you can see people start to sweat about making the choices and stuff. And I remember,
Sure.
and like
It's a good game.
it's a good torturous game. And
Uh-huh.
one of the things I often ask to people, like the final question I usually ask when we kind of gets bored, I'm saying, which is the Sophie's Choice / one question you will not be able to choose, in the fact that you'll probably just break down and cry in the middle and not go to either of them because you can't make the choice. And
Right.
I've always said it's either 2003 era Blink-182 or the Smiths is Dead era Smiths. If I had the choice between them, I'd explode because I don't know how to make it, because that's like the kind of dream.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
I would pick Smiths over probably anyone.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I think that's the decision. Like, if it only ever happened once,
Yeah.
like through time travel,
my goodness.
that's how much I really liked that era of the Smiths, particularly the Queen is Dead, particularly that Queen is Dead era and stuff. And
yeah. Wow,
so,
that would be incredible.
But that's that. So it's for the most closure beat. That's how much I kind of really got into them. But I think
that's amazing. And what a cool uncle.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's the one that got me into them. And so from here on out, I'm not going to focus on modern Morrissey. We're going to kind of just talk about the Morrissey of the past and kind of separate the person and the art, because as much as I have issues with Monday Morrissey, I really do like the Smiths, and we're going to kind of focus on how good they were.
Yes, let's do that.
So, Strangeways, here we come. It was their last album.
It was, yep.
It was, and they pretty much ended up going their separate ways. I think more or less before it came out.
A few months before it came out.
What was it about? So what's it about this album that you'd put over the others?
Just the songs, I think. It's the four of their proper records they're all incredible from start to finish. But this one, Strangeways, just has there's something about it. I think it just has a more grown-up sound. It's a bit more evolved. It's really sad that they had broken up when they were getting, they had been good from record 1, song 1, but they were really going to go somewhere with this record. And I think after this record, It's a different sound. I think going from The Queen is Dead, which to me is full of kind of jaunty little numbers, there's Cemetery Gates and Boy with the Thorn in His Side, to Strangeways is a big leap for them. And I think I will always put this record on if I'm just in the Smiths mood and I'm not sure, I'll just put a Smiths record on. It will be this one for sure. The songs are just from start to finish, no skips. It's great.
Yeah, I think it's also ones that they kind of wanted to experiment with more as well. So like from what I've been gathering and reading about, I think Johnny Marr especially wanted to try to move away from the jangle
Right.
pop and stuff, but he's always been someone who's always quite experimental and always been kind of pushing the boat for music anyway. I'm pretty sure I read somewhere that I think This Charming Man was done when he slapped a butter knife across a guitar string or something. No,
Right.
apparently, yeah, that's.
And when you think about how young Johnny Marr was, I just finished reading his book, Set the Boy Free, last month. I read it, and he was 20 when that first Smiths record came out. 20 years old. It's unreal. It's just unbelievable to me. And to think, the way that he and Morrissey wrote songs, they just, the way he describes it, the first time that they sat down to write songs together, he just started with his guitar, with a riff, and Morrissey just sang over top of it. And they had a song, and I forget what song it was now, but it's something that made it to the first record. They were just like, there it is. There's a record, or there's a song, and it's going to be something that's unlike anything that's ever been made before, and just Morrissey and Marr together were magic. There was something there that neither one of them, I mean, if I may be so bold to say, neither one of them's ever been able to do again since the Smiths, They both put out great records, but nothing like any of the four that they did together.
Yeah, I think you can always, particularly between the two of them, you can kind of tell from their solo stuff that what the other brought kind of like encapsulates stuff. And as great as some of like Morrissey's solo stuff was, he kind of lacked that musical edge to it. And I've not really listened to The Messenger that much by Johnny Marr, but I think I listened to it like when it came out, like about 10 years ago. But I kind of remember not listening to it that much after since, because I think lyrically, I think that sound, you're expecting kind of like the wail of Morrissey over it and stuff.
For sure. I'm the same. I'm a much bigger Morrissey solo fan than I am Marr solo fan, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. But I remember, because I'm this, like, one of the things I remember ended up doing as well, I ended up buying, and I can't remember much from it, I ended up reading an unofficial biography of Morrissey as well. That's how much I kind of really got into the Smiths at the time. And I'm pretty sure, and I think it was either that or I think it was from that as well, or something that, like, a lot of the time, I think the writing style was a case, and this might have led to kind of the tensions eventually, was that Morrissey would write all the lyrics first, and then Johnny Marr had to kind of retrofit the songs around.
Yeah, in Marr's book, he says it differently. He was giving him, Marr would give Morrissey bits or like songs, and Morrissey would write lyrics for it. But he was also very, he spoke very highly of Morrissey. There wasn't any kind of dirt in the book, which good on Johnny Marr for that. He took the high road there for sure. Yeah. I did also read I tried to read Morrissey's autobiography, and it was a slog. I couldn't do it. I tried my best. There was no chapters. It like literally started on page 1 and ended on the last page with no chapters in between. And it's just a slog. For a man I love so much, I couldn't get through it.
Is that the one he wrote himself?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I've not read that one. It's the like an unofficial one have I still got it?
I don't recommend it. I don't recommend Morrissey's. I do, however, recommend Johnny Marr Set the Boy Free. It was fantastic.
I don't think I've got it anymore. It might have not survived might not survive the move. I think it was like an unofficial one that like a unofficial biography I ended up reading.
Maybe I should stick to the unofficials when it
Yeah.
comes to Morrissey.
Yeah, but so interesting. Though, I think so. I'm assuming that the wordsmithery from Morrissey is much better in the short form poetry
Hmm.
rather than long form
Yeah.
narrative.
Oh, it's what I kind of imagine a conversation with Morrissey would feel like, just kind of droning on and on about himself that I don't have I love you. I love him. My heart for that man. But no, I couldn't. I couldn't.
Hmm.
No, thank you.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I think as well. There's quite a few things like interesting things like there's a shortlist.com has a great thing where it says 25 things you probably didn't know about Strangeways. Here we come.
Oh, cool.
Part of me wants to go through and see if you knew these or not, but let's see how far we get before we get bored. So so the first one was Strangeways is the only Smiths album to feature Morrissey playing an instrument, or
I
at
did know
least
that.
the only album.
Piano, right? Is he playing piano?
Yeah, do you know which song?
Yeah. Is it Death of a Disco Dancer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Douglas Coupland is a massive Smiths fan, naming his book Girlfriend in a Coma after the Strangeways
Yes.
single.
I read that book.
The album's title is a reference to the John Schlesinger film Billy Liar, based in Keith Waterhouse's classic novel. Specifically, it's a corruption of the line Borstal, Here We Come. And I think
Mhm.
Strangeways, is actually a prison near Salford, I think.
Right.
So the road sign on the rear cover of Strangeways was stolen not long after the album's release and has never resurfaced. It was
Oh,
formerly
no way.
Yeah, it was formerly situated just off Deansgate in Manchester.
Very cool.
So
Someone's got it.
yeah. So if you do that trip in Manchester, you can go. This is where the sign was.
Yeah, someone has it. Who has it?
Yeah. The UK release of Strangeways comes in two different colours. The most common version shows the band name and title in the front in grey. However, a rarer and more collective edition has them appearing in green. A copy of this latter one, if you can find it, will set you back at least 150 quid.
Wow.
Yeah. None other than James Dean was cropped out of the album's cover image. The portrait is of, do you know who?
Yeah, I forget his name, but he was in East of Eden with him.
It's the co-star Richard Davalos.
Right.
They also appear on the US versions of Best 1 and Best 2.
Mm-hmm.
The song Stop Me If You Think You've Heard This One Before was originally supposed to be released as a single. However, it was scrapped in the wake of the 1987 Hungerford massacre because it contained the lyric Plan a Mass Murder.
Oh.
I don't remember that. I think I was 2 when that happened. I can't remember what that was. It was a mass shooting in the UK. Yeah, okay.
What was the massacre called?
The Hungerford Massacre,
Hungerford.
which was a spree shooting in Hungerford, England on the 19th of August 1987,
Yikes.
where 16 people were shot.
You don't hear about that kind of stuff over there very often.
No, I think there was a massive crackdown in the mid-90s after the Dunblane incident in 1996, and I think the gun laws got absolutely tightened.
As they should.
Yeah, Morrissey and Johnny Marr have both cited Strangeways as their favourite Smiths album. The pair have gone even further and agreed in separate interviews at separate times that Last Night I Dreamed That Somebody Loved Me, the band's final single, is their favourite Smiths song. Though they're not exactly consistent on this.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a long time. I'm sure that things change. Opinions change.
The song paints a vulgar picture. A cynical record company execs delightfully cashing in on a dead pop star recycles a comment by the band's rough trade label boss, Jeff Travis. Travis quipped, "You haven't just earned it yet, baby," a phrase that Moz also appropriated for the single of the same name.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know that one. I would say actually, I think Strangeways is before I continue these. Strangeways is actually the album I know there's the least. So this is like
right.
So out of all the Smiths albums, this is the one I wasn't familiar with. I knew the singles more that appeared on the best of. So
and did you listen to it preparing for this?
Yes, yeah, I've listened to it a few times. And I've listened. I have listened to it in the past, but my kind of go-to is always kind of The Queen Is Dead,
right?
Over the others. So Queen Is Dead is usually my go-to, whereas I think you say this one's just your go-to.
Yeah.
Queen Is Dead is mine.
I mean, The Queen Is Dead is incredible, but yeah, I love.
Oh, actually, I argue that those last two tracks should be the other way around. So
Yeah.
I think it needs to end on "There Is a Light," right? I think so, to the point where the Spotify playlist I make for the album, I switch those two around
You've
so it
switched
ends.
it. Right.
Strangeways was recorded in the Wool Hall in Beckerton, south of Bristol. Morrissey also used it for his debut solo album Viva Hate. The studio was owned by Bath superstars Tears for Fears, who used it to record their 1984 smash Songs from the Big Chair, and later Van Morrison. He's now a private residence.
I didn't know that Van Morrison bit.
So the man slumped over the stool in the record's sleeve art is almost certainly drummer Mike Joyce.
What was that?
So there's a man slumped over a stool on the sleeve
The
art.
sleeve
apparently.
art. I don't have that on my record here. Well,
So a popular rumour about Strangeways, which was released after the band broke up, is that a gunman, distraught by the demise of his favourite band, held up a Denver radio station and insisted that they play nothing but the Smith songs.
oh,
An investigation by a Denver-based website proved the story to be I can't even pronounce that. Apocryphal. I think the truth of that is, under question. Mainly because I can't pronounce that. That's the word it's used.
It sounds a bit extreme.
The 7-inch and 12-inch pressings of I Started Something I Couldn't Finish are etched with Murder at Wool Hall, starring Sheridan Whiteside, on the A side. The message is considered an allusion to the band's breakup and Morrissey's, aka Sheridan Whiteside's, impending solo debut, Viva Hate, also recorded at Wool Hall Studios. 12-inch and the cassette single of Releases of Girlfriend and Karma contains the final recorded Smith song, I Keep Mine Hidden. Morrissey's insistence that Girlfriend be released as a single was allegedly a catalyst in Johnny Marr's departure from the band, and the song was banned by BBC Radio 1.
Wow.
I'm not sure why that. Why would they ban? The only thing I could think of is perhaps the kind of, because it's not really about abuse. It's more of a, whether there are times I could have strangled her line that perhaps I could probably see that would probably got it banned, but then again that's more a case of, that's not actually about abuse. It's more the comical.
That's a pretty I'm not sure why that would be banned either. Some pretty strict
album's
rules.
cover. For the album's cover, Morrissey originally wanted to use a picture of Harvey Keitel in Martin Scorsese's debut film Who's Knocking at My Door, but Keitel refused. I remember reading about that actually in the book apparently.
Right, but then Harvey Keitel let him use the image later on for the Kill Uncle tour. Yeah, I had read that before.
In the album's sleeve notes, Johnny Marr's synthesized string and saxophone work is credited to Orchestrazia Ardwick being the area of Manchester that Johnny is from. So he's kind of credited under a different name.
Yeah.
Strangeways' opening song, A Rush and a Push and a Landis Hours, features no guitars. A pointed attempt by Johnny Marr to break away from the jangling sound that had come to define them. After Johnny Marr quit, the band briefly tried to carry on. East House guitarist Ivor Perry was drafted in to record a B-side for Stop Me If You Think You've Heard This One Before. The sessions were aborted, but a different version of the song, Bengali and Platforms, would appear on Morrissey's debut solo album, Viva Hate. Unlikely as we're on 19 now, so we might as well get through them all.
Sure.
Unlikely as it seems, Girlfriend in a Coma was originally set to a reggae rhythm. An early demo of the song can be heard on the bootleg vinyl The Smiths' unreleased demos and instrumentals. Moz, remember when you told Melody Maker in 1984 that all reggae was vile? Moz? He's not listening.
Wow. Yeah, I can't picture that with a reggae beat.
Another reason Johnny Marr gave for quitting the Smiths during the final throes of the Strangeways sessions was Morrissey's determination to re-record Cilla Black's Work as a Four-Letter Word as a B-side. I didn't form a group to perform Cilla Black songs, he told one interviewer in 1992. Do you know who Cilla Black is?
It's mentioned in the Johnny Marr book a little bit, but really no.
Cilla Black was a Liverpool singer who was around like the same time as the Beatles were. The Biffs, the Smith, the Beatles. Bloody hell, Matthew!
Right,
the Biffs. Who the flipping hell are the Biffs? I apologise. I have this kind of weird thing where I'll start mispronouncing names and stuff. But the fictional band, the Biffs, the Beatles. Sorry. So around the 60s, when the Beatles were coming up, I think Cilla Black was singing around the Cavern Club at the same time.
Right.
Cilla Black would then go to host like a massive Saturday night TV show called Blind Date in the 90s.
Okay.
Yeah, so so she was like kind of like known in the kind of music scene. So yeah, I'm surprised that Morrissey was still a black fan, if I'm honest. Stop Me If You Think You've Heard This One Before was the basis for the Mark Ronson and Daniel Merriweather single Stop Me. Ronson's version was covered by Groove Armada in the Radio 1 Live Lounge, featuring ex-Jamiroquai bassist Stuart Zender from the Smiths to Jamiroquai in 3 Steps. Who'd have thought? I actually have the compilation CD that has that version of it on.
Oh yeah.
The cover, the Groove Armada cover of that Mark Ronson cover, because that got written. That actually got quite big in when it was released. That cover did, and there's a few people who weren't aware it was a Smith song.
I don't think I've
Okay.
heard it.
It's alright. It's all right. I like it. I prefer the original, but yeah, it's not an offensive cover version, I think,
Right.
at all. So, Strangeways recording sessions frequently descend into late night drinking, aided by a well-stocked wine cellar at the Wool Hall Studios. Morrissey would often not partake in these. He instead preferred to go to bed, which I fully can imagine, where he just goes to bed like at 10 o'clock at a reasonable time, and then
Oh yeah.
and then Rourke, Joyce, and Ma just like drinking until about
Partying.
3 a.m. in the
Mhm.
morning.
Yeah,
So,
I would do what Morrissey does. I would also go to bed early.
Yeah. To be fair, I think mid-20s me probably would have gone to bed as well, rather than.
Well, yeah, that's true. I mean, Morrissey at that time was probably like 27, 28.
Mm,
So, yeah, 27, 28 me would not have gone to bed. I would have stayed up and partied.
yeah, I think 28 me probably would have gone to bed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
28-year-old me should have gone to bed.
Yeah.
Mhm.
After the album's completion, the band were assembled in London to shoot a video that would boost their US profile in support of Strangeways. Morrissey refused to attend the shoot. Mark quit soon after.
Yeah. Interesting. In the book, he gets into, Johnny Marr gets into it a little bit, and he says it's mostly, or what, he gets into in the book is that it's mostly management issues, and that Morrissey didn't want a manager, but then that puts Johnny Marr into the management position, and he didn't want to be the manager. So a lot of their arguments and kind of disagreements came from that. So like I said, though, he really took the high road in this book. So he didn't get too much into the pointing fingers.
I can probably imagine that Morrissey was probably not the easiest person to work with.
Oh my goodness. He would be the most difficult person to get along with.
Yeah.
And to spend that much time with, yeah, no, thank you.
Yeah. Last Night I Dreamt That Somebody Loved Me is David Bowie's favourite Smith song. Speaking to Q in 1992, the Thin White Duke said, "I still rate Morrissey as one of the best lyricists in Britain."
Great.
So, and the final one, Bernard Manning spoofed the band's split on TV show The Last Resort in 1987. In the sketch, Manning sings the Smith songs on a fake ad for his upcoming album, The Smiths Are Dead. Which, bit of a damp squib to end on, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that's 25 things you probably didn't know about Strangeways. But
Right.
that's yes, but but I think a lot of the things around that are like talking about the kind of the tensions between them and like the inevitable breakup, even though they was trying to do something different. But like, again, I can't probably talk to the band themselves, but I don't know whether the book elaborates on this, but I'm assuming that tensions were there before this album to try something different, and there was kind of either growing up and breaking away anyway. Is that is that in the book, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of just difficulties around what they both wanted and who they were becoming. I think being so young as just people, as individuals when they started, and Morrissey moving. Like, I think they all moved to London at one point, and then Johnny Marr moved back to Manchester. Morrissey stayed in London and really loved the London life and was getting into that kind of stuff, where Marr was, wanting to like not be so out and in the public eye and that kind of thing. And so there was just a lot of differences between the two fellas, and I think that just, as much as they were making magic and making history, literally, I think they were just growing differently in different ways as people.
Yeah.
Is kind of what I gathered from the book.
Yeah, I think going on. Yeah, I think I'm not going to go into too much of it because I think because I'm conscious of the time and start talking about the songs. But then, like, inevitably, it's like after the kind of the breakup, there was the whole court case thing, which
Yeah.
it'll take, which is a whole other conversation, which we probably won't have time for.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like Rook and Joyce were like trying to sue to try and get equal shares for songwriting stuff.
Yeah.
And I think, and there was a quote I remember reading ages ago where, because everyone was thinking that Mara and Morrissey were like hated each other or something, but then there was, I can't remember what the quote was exactly, but there was a quote that Morrissey said that goes like, "I have no feelings. I don't hate him. I don't like him. I have no feelings to him, but he's like he was part of her life, and I'll always remember him fondly for that." And apparently, said like I had a chat with him recently over the phone briefly. It was nice. Only didn't last that long, but like
Right.
we're at peace or something, or so they don't have any kind of bad
Yeah.
feelings. They're just grown apart.
Yeah.
His views on Joyce and Rook, I don't know, but I'm assuming they're not going to be the same as.
Yeah, no, I think that's although Johnny Marr did just get together with Andy Rourke, they played together recently for the Killers. Like Johnny Marr was playing some shows with the Killers recently and Andy Rourke joined them on stage and there's some photos of them together and so I just keep thinking maybe there will be a reunion, who knows, but I'm saving up my money. As soon as that gets announced, I'm flying to England and I'm going to be there. I will be there for that.
I think there are kind of more supernatural things that might happen before a Smiths reunion.
I think you might be right.
A Smiths reunion would break people. I think
it would.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think there was more chance of well, to be fair, we have had an international pandemic, so anything can happen. So
Mm-hmm. It's true.
Yeah.
The last couple of years have been wild, so who knows what will happen next.
yeah, but so if we're talking about some of the songs themselves,
Sure. Yep.
So which songs jump out to you when you think of this album?
Well, like I said, there's no skips on this record for me. From start to finish, they're all brilliant. When I just look at it, like track 1, A Rush and a Push and the Land Is Ours, I get really happy when I put this record on and that's the first track. I think, as you mentioned, there's no guitars. It's such a good opening track. And to go from The Queen Is Dead to this opening track for the next record, it just tells you that we're in for something different. We're in for something different musically. I mean, the lyrics are very similar to what you would expect from a Smiths record, but the music is just so different. They're almost like circusy, and it's just I don't know. I get excited when this first track comes on.
Yeah, and I remember listening, but then I didn't notice there's no guitars, but then mainly because of like how Johnny Marr usually kind of experiments with the guitar sound.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like, if you told me these were like him messing around with the guitar strings to make sound like a keyboard, I would have believed you. But,
yeah, that's true too.
Yeah, but it still sounds like it still has a kind of Smith sound to it, but something kind of new and exciting. And yeah, and again, as you said with the lyrics, I think Morrissey's perhaps one of the few songwriters who has a kind of it's very hard. People have tried to mimic Morrissey, a lot, but he's got a unique style, which, like, if you read lyrics, you can kind of tell they're Morrissey songs. There's a very kind of dry, kind of acerbic wit in them.
For sure.
There's a playful kind of storytelling to them, and he makes it seem so easy. It's ridiculous how he makes it seem so
he
easy.
Does.
So for example, the first verse where he's like, I think again trying to decipher what Smith songs mean, and there are whole factions online which have tried to differentiate for them. But the first bit's where it says there's too much caffeine in your bloodstream and a real lack of real spice in your life, which doesn't sound like a song lyric should be, but he always manages to make things sound like they are.
And to go along, when it goes along with that vocal melody, it's just, I don't know, I'm all in. I'm already all in for this record.
Yeah, it's just like reminding you of his ability to kind of have words that would not seem to be song lyrics
Mm-hmm.
flit into song lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And the way he sings them, like when he's like, rush, like that,
yeah,
just that piece that's just only Morrissey can do.
yeah. There's like it's like a weird conversational thing, or like it's that storytelling ability that he has.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then going into like almost kind of pop hooks, but that aren't pop hooks. So other
Mm-hmm.
song, I think like in the decades of in like more kind of modern indie, you've got kind of like Rylan, who was on a previous episode about 1975, who are kind of like a Manchester-based
Mm.
band.
Yeah.
Matty Healy is the lead singer. I don't know if are you aware of the 1975?
Yep. They're
Yeah,
great.
Matty Healy, I think, takes a lot from Morrissey. I think he
Sure. Yeah,
has a lot of
definitely.
Morrissey in them. But then kind of stuff like, for example, the pre-chorus series. Oh, but don't mention love. Don't mention love. Kind of modern, kind of indie or modern indie pop is kind of like would have take that into an actual kind of pop hook, particularly in the
Mm-hmm.
modern day age. But whereas here, it's not a poppy sound, but the lyrics could. It kind of like predates. It kind of predates like by decades, kind of self-deprecating pop
Oh,
of
for
the
sure.
tens
Yep.
and 20s.
No one does that self-loathing better than Morrissey does.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. Yeah, but yeah, I completely agree. I mean, this is one of the one again. One of the songs I'm not too familiar, wasn't too familiar with in terms of the Smiths
Right.
catalog. But yeah, like I was listening to this, I'm like, I couldn't remember the last time I heard it, but I was like, yeah, it's a way of just setting you into the Smiths mood, more or
Mm-hmm.
less. So,
For
where
sure.
do you want to move on to next?
I mean, uh, we could go into like Girlfriend in a Coma is a classic.
Yeah, this was one of the ones that was on the best of that was given. It's one of the songs that jumped out to me as well. This is one of my
Yeah.
favourite
Yeah.
Smith
This is one
songs.
of the ones that would have been on a mixtape that I got very early on when I was
Mm.
14, 15 years old, that I still love. Like this one, if it comes on when I'm out, if I'm out for dinner out at a bar and it comes on, I'm like, yes, this song. This is just a classic Smith song. And I have two kids, they're 13 and 14. And my 13-year-old, my daughter, she's getting into the Smiths, and this is one of her favorite songs too. It's a classic. It's generational. People love it.
Yeah, and again, I think it hits quite a few Smiths tropes or kind of familiar things that like, yeah, it's completely Smiths by numbers, but it's really
Oh
good Smiths by
yeah.
numbers. So it's like, oh yeah, so it's got the kind of wailing stuff, but then the kind of like like almost jollyish kind of upbeat
Yeah.
music over
Yep.
kind of depressing.
It's
Of
like morbid. The lyrics are
yeah,
morbid, but the music is
yeah,
happy.
yeah. It's just like a really, it's like I've always said that I always quite like happy sad songs. So
Mm-hmm.
particularly stuff in the one day where it's like people singing happily, but the lyrics are quite dark.
Yeah.
I think the way that kind of like Mara and Morrissey have done things is that I don't think Morrissey can't sing upbeat to save his life.
Right.
Yeah,
Yep.
but
Mm-hmm.
it works. I mean, as much as I think other people would have made the lyrics here more upbeat,
Yeah.
masking over the darkness, but you've got Mar doing all that heavy lifting, and then you've got the kind of lovely kind of juxtaposition or contrast of kind of like the really like sad like thing where you're going like you feel like you need to go into a room with Morrissey and have an intervention going, Stephen, are you okay?
Yeah. Are you okay? Are you all
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
And who thinks of that? Who thinks to write lyrics about their girlfriend in a coma? I mean, this is just what's in his brain.
yeah. But then it's the kind. I think it's the kind of like conversation like, oh, I could kill them, or like kind of like the frustration of like if the friends or partners or something like, oh, for God's sake,
Yep.
like
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like I'm gonna strangle him or something like that.
Yeah.
And he puts that into songs, and I think it's not. But I think, and I'm going to assume that's probably the lyrics that the BBC they probably blocked it for. Like, oh no, we can't have him talking about strangling his girlfriend. But
Yeah.
it's not it's the kind of relatability and mundanity or something like if something happens or you find someone's done something like, oh God, I'm going to kill him when I see him.
Yeah.
It's that kind of like over exaggeration.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So you've got those things where it's like, again, there are times where I could have murdered, but the fact is the way he sings it,
Mm-hmm.
the way he sings it, you know, he's kind of like he's like almost air quoting with his voice.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've told my husband I'm going to murder him in the most loving, thoughtful, romantic way possible, you know? I would never actually do it,
Yeah.
but I'd like to tell him once in a while, you know?
I could. Options there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could
Yeah.
murder you if I really wanted to. Maybe I'm too close to Morrissey's lyrics. Who knows?
Yeah. That's a
influenced.
that's a conversation you probably have a bit later. Oh, so how did it go? Guys, I've just talked about me killing you at time.
Yeah. Well, maybe you shouldn't
Yeah.
listen to it.
But yeah, and it's a very unlikely single. I think unlikely single or unlikely song that again it doesn't feel like it should be as popular as it is. But on Spotify, it's the highest amount of plays.
Is it?
Yeah. It's at 41 million. The next one closest to that is Stop Me, which is 27.
Wow.
Yeah, and then Last Night is 20, and Pushing the Push is 22. So and then
Wow.
So this is the most popular song off this album.
Yeah, well, and it's 2 minutes. It's perfect. Like a 2-minute little, like, I always say, if you can't say it in 2.5 minutes, don't say it, you know?
Yeah, but this is another one. I mean, yeah, so if this is one that probably land in my kind of Smith's mixtape playlist that I'd
For
do.
sure. Yeah, it's a great one.
What do you want to talk about next?
How about Stop Me? If you think you've heard this one before. It's, for me, it's just a little, like, I just love it's upbeat. I love singing it. For me, if I can sing it, especially if I can sing it in the car when it's loud, I'm in. I'm all in. For me, it's the lyrics and the vocal melody that really get me for this one.
Yeah, I think it's their last ever single as well. Again, I don't like the phrase because again, Smith by numbers, but I think it's a one that describes it where again it's the Morrissey kind of lyrics, the waveforms lyrics. Actually, this is probably the most upbeat we've probably heard from him in comparison to other songs on the album, mixed in with kind of just that distinctive Johnny Marr sound.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, with the song title, which I think is like I think the song title is probably the kind of song title that would reference all your Fall Out Boys and Panic at the Discos, with like really long song titles, influenced by these and stuff. And it's just got that really great. Yeah, I really love this song. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about it. Apart from that, it's
I know
great.
it's just really a great song. I don't know. I mean, I've got more things to say about more songs on this record, but I just didn't want. I'm feeling bad skipping over some songs.
Yeah,
I think it's just what I'm feeling right now.
Yeah,
you know?
but I think this is one proactive at least bring up. But again, because it was covered by Mark Ronson and Daniel Merriweather, and it's a bit more of a kind of slower kind of pop song with some dance elements into it. And I always thought it was fine. It's fine cover, and it's interesting to see how it translates to more of a kind of wistful pop song.
Yeah,
because the lyrics
I'm gonna
work
find
quite
it and listen to it. But
yeah,
the lyrics are great. Like I was, what did he say? I broke my spleen and broke my knee, and then he really laid into me. Like again, it's really dark, you know, but like fast upbeat.
Actually talking about the lyrics itself, what do you think he's talking about, particularly with that second verse? Because to me, it sounds like he's been beaten by the police.
Yeah, it sounds. I have to pull them up to see what exactly, like without just Friday night and outpatients. I'm just pulling them up here.
Either that, or he's actually using, or he's just using it as a metaphor for something else he's talking about. Because then he then talks about who said I lied.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he's definitely been beaten up. You know, I don't know. I don't think I saw or found like a police reference, but maybe. Where do you think that comes in?
The police reference.
Yeah, where do you see that?
Well, because at the start of the second verse says I was detained and restrained and broke my spleen and knee, and he really laid into me.
Right, detained. Friday night note patients who said I'd lied to her. Who you lying to, Morrissey?
But yeah, then again, but then this is where you can kind of get into, um, like like the kind of minutiae of Morrissey's songwriting in that whether the detaining and restraining and the
Mm-hmm.
imagery of being detained by law enforcement
Sure.
and and feeling like he's been put, whether that's actually talking about a conversation that he's having with someone else. So there's still,
Right.
but yeah, but then stop me if you heard this one before. This sounds like you're talking about a joke or talking about a familiar story that you've been using quite a few times, and
Yeah, you've been
whether
saying this one over
yeah,
and over.
yeah,
See,
I
I
think,
just picture him on a bike, like on a bicycle,
hmm
and an emergency stop. I smelt the last 10 seconds of life. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what this one is, but I like it.
and yeah, and before we move on to another song, let's say I think quite a few bands I like, and include my favorite band of all time. And I've talked about, and I've talked about one of their albums. I think my favorite album of all time is from my favorite band of all time, Los Campesinos. Um, they've always said they've been influenced by Morrissey's songwriting and the kind of dour sense of humour. And I think Gareth from that band's got a very kind of unique kind of lyrical style, and I think a lot of it's kind of influenced from the Smiths. But yeah, I just saw the end. Like, I still love you only slightly less than I used to.
Right.
Yeah, reminds me of quite a few of the Los Campesinos songs. There's I think By Your Hand. There's the pre-chorus is like, I'm not sure if it's love anymore, but I've been thinking of you fondly for sure. Which I
Right.
feel like a very Smiths
Yeah.
reference one. I think his personal Twitter bio for ages was a Morrissey quote, which was like, I might be ugly, but I've got the bottle opener.
Right.
Yeah.
Love it.
So yeah, but I can feel like a lot of the stuff that I got into just after, because I think I discovered Los Campesinos a few years after the Smiths. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I can see how their lyrics are very much influenced by the Smiths, particularly with the kind of very kind of like self-deprecating nature of it, and
Yeah.
yeah. So what do you want to move on to next?
Well, we can move on to Last Night I Dreamt That Somebody Loved Me,
Mm-hmm.
which is, I believe it's track 1, side 2. Let me just double check here. It is, yeah, track 1, side 2, which on our podcast, I always have this, I talk about this theory that I have that I don't think is my theory, but it's a theory I talk about a lot, about how the second side, first track is always a great track. It's always going to be good because they want you to flip it over. They want you to flip over the record, flip over the cassette, whatever.
Make
I
the
guess.
effort to go over and
Mm-hmm. Yeah, keep listening for sure. And this one is that for sure. I love the song. This is great. But again, it's classic moody, self-loathing Morrissey, and it's just it's moody. I love moody. I love moody.
but yeah, it's very kind of moody in comparison to other Smith songs because it takes
Mm-hmm.
a while to slowly build in. I mean, it's
Yeah.
5 minutes. It's like just over 5 minutes long.
Mm-hmm.
Like yeah, and as much as I constantly keep saying on this podcast, I don't like long songs. This is one of the ones that kind of keeps my attention to it. Keeps
Yeah.
my attention. But yeah, because it's got kind of really long instrumental intro, which is very interesting because it starts with an audio recording. So it starts with a coal miners' strike that lasted from 1984 to 1985, and Morris is always kind of like aligned himself with working class and sympathised with the miners that were doing the strikes at the time,
Mm-hmm.
as well as his kind of very vocal hatred of the Prime Minister at the time, Margaret Thatcher. So it's kind of that, which I think has kind of semblance today. I mean, the mines have stopped now, but I mean, the UK's full with strikes at the moment of all sorts of things. So that kind of sentiment is still there to this day
Mm-hmm.
again. So it's kind of like almost timeless in its way of people striking against the government.
Right.
Yeah, but then again, and I've always wondered why that's the choice. That clip was a choice for this song. I've never fully understood why.
Yeah, it's interesting. I know that he liked to play around with samples and he was very into that kind of thing. Why that clip in this song, I'm not sure, but yeah, I don't know. It does set the mood and the tone though, for sure.
Hmm. Yeah. So I've always wondered why. If anyone's listening that can probably shed some light on this, I'd love to get interpretations because if there's,
Morrissey and Mar, we know
yeah,
you're listening.
yeah.
Just let us
Come on,
know.
Johnny. Come on, Stephen. Come on, give us a.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyone who doesn't know, actually, Stephen is actually Morrissey's first name. 'Cause his name's Stephen Patrick Morrissey. That's
That's
just in
right.
case everyone's saying who's Stephen.
Yeah, why does he keep talking about Stephen?
Yeah. I mean, the lyrics again are like stereotypical, kind of like over dramatic,
Yeah.
like sad boy, the sad boy emo.
So thick with
Yeah.
drama.
Yeah, basically an emo song before emo was a thing.
Yeah.
In about like 20 years' time.
Yeah, were we calling this goth at the time? I don't even think that it was goth. It was just sad music. Sad music's my favorite music. But it makes my heart feel something and it makes me feel sad. But it's also, I put this kind of music on when I'm feeling sad and I put this kind of music on when I'm feeling happy. And it's my kind of music. It's what I don't know. It makes me feel all the feelings and I relate to it and I connect with it. And like I said, it felt like when I was 14 and it still feels like it now when I'm 46 that he's writing for me and he gets me.
Mm-hmm.
They get me. Morrissey and Mar both get me in a way that no one I've ever met has. And I know that sounds super cheesy and I know that it sounds ridiculous, but it's true. I've lost both my parents. I've like in times that I've needed people in my life, I've had the Smiths. And I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. They've always been there for me.
Yeah, it's like a comfort blanket in terms of like a comfort blanket or something to get like kind of thing to in like vocalize thoughts or kind of aspects of personalities, and it's always. But yeah, I've said that there are parts of the Smith discography that's done that. There are other bands that have done that. The aforementioned Los Campesinos is full of stuff like that. I think for myself as the Wombats, where like, or the Wombats even, which is another band that I quite like. They'll have moments in songs where they seem to capture a thought process in a certain way. To kind of like hook you in and stuff, and like and depending on that, I mean, yeah, and again like stuff like this song, there's like moments where like you're feeling kind of really down, and it's kind of vocalizing. It feels melodramatic, kind of melodramatic at a point, but it's also kind of almost very po-faced and serious as well. And again, I think it's a testament to kind of the Smiths that you can either take Last Night as either a kind of serious and cathartic thing, or Morrissey being a pastiche of over. And you can read it in both ways depending on the mood you're in. So he's either making fun of kind of like the sad music, or he's also allowing you to bask in it depending on the mood you're in. And I think it's kind of clever that they've done that.
I think so too. And you've nailed it. That's exactly right.
Yeah. And I think as well, in terms of the sequencing of it, and you're saying about the start of side B, I think, so you've got to go over and there's a break to it. But also I think when you're listening to it either on CD or as I did on Spotify going all the way through, it offers a kind of break. It's the kind of like apex of the album. It gives you a break, and you're not having all the kind of jangly kind of beat, drum beat songs and stuff. You've got the moment where it kind of goes into a kind of more introspective moment to kind of ease you to kind of like say, yep, you've had to stop me now. Kind of going to have a break for a moment. We're going to get you to feel a bit sad. Here's some strikers before you go on to Unhappy Birthday. Let's calm down. Let's just remember you got to be sad. You got to kind of mope for a bit. Okay, that's it.
Remember why we're here.
Yeah, right. That's it. Carry on with the album.
Yeah, for sure.
I've got time for a couple more. So
okay,
which ones do you want to?
I think we should talk about Paint a Vulgar Picture.
Okay. So what do we do about this one?
This one I think is just a perfect song with the lyrics, the vocal melody, the key changes, the guitar melodies. It all fits together in one package that just it's a perfect song in my opinion. I could listen to it over and over again.
Yeah, that intro sounds like something that has been on about 100 teen trailers for teen movies. So
Yeah.
yeah, it feels it probably hasn't, but then that kind of like opening kind of guitar thing, it sounds like if you got a trailer or the opening of like
Right.
a Molly Ringwald film to like a, I don't know, Freddie Prinze Jr. film or even like a
Right.
modern day one. It
Mhm.
feels like something that'll get played to open up
Mhm.
like an American teen drama film. It's got that
Yep.
kind of feeling to it.
The hand claps, like
Yeah,
it's just such a great song.
yeah, and it's the upbeat kind of the Smiths version of upbeat. Yeah, and I kind of like the attempt of being a kind of catchy melody, but then Morrissey's still got he's just got that Morris. There's no other way of saying it because Morrissey's his own verb when it comes to vocals.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
the lyrics, the sycophantic slags, I'll say, I knew him first and I knew him well. I think like that lyric alone, I say to myself often, I don't know. I feel like that just comes up in my everyday life every once in a while. And I say it to myself. The sycophantic slags, I'll say, I knew him first and I knew him well.
yeah,
It just, he, yeah, he just gets it. And it's just such a great, again, this is one that I connect with lyrically when he says, where is he? Let me just go back into the lyric sheet here for a second. When he says, I touched you at the sound check. You had no real way of knowing. In my heart, I begged, take me with you. I don't care where you're going. But to you, I was faceless. I was fawning. I was boring, just a child from those ugly new houses who you would never begin to know. And then he comes back to that, towards the end. So in my bedroom in those ugly new houses, I danced my legs down to the knees. But me and my true love will never meet again. And I feel like I was that kid. I was the kid that was just sitting in my room listening to music and thinking about my musical heroes. And I don't know. I connect with this one. I connect with this song.
'cause this feels like it's the what's the word parasocial. That's it, parasocial kind of relationship you kind of either form with like either musicians or people that you admire or anything, or people that you don't know. You just kind of like I think parasocial, particularly, I think is something is more common, particularly in our kind of in terms of podcasting, because the parasocial relationships is something that's a lot more apparent with ongoing things, just as like as well podcast hosts, and the kind of relationship between the listener and the creator. It's the same with here as well. So like it's the kind of fan experience, and it's something that is like forever apparent and ever going and constant, no matter who's whatever the kind of the big thing is at the moment. I've got friends who do podcasts and they talk about kind of One Direction and Harry Styles and all that kind of stuff, and they probably have that same experience as the song's describing here.
Right.
Yeah, there's probably new generation who feels the same way about BTS, which is
Yep.
who's got a massive fan base and stuff, and and kind of like oddly poignant to find that it's on one of their last album where they're talking about like people grieving either the end of someone's career or the end of their music stuff, and
The
where
Dead
you probably
Star.
have people, as you said yourself as well, just like kind of grieving the end of the Smiths or the end of like the music or the fangirl / fanboy kind of element to it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but I think there's like I think that's half the song as well. But then you've got kind of like the singer kind of talking about the flip side of that. So you've got the fan version
Yeah.
of things, but not really seeing perhaps if things are ending, why that is. And you've got you kind of got the second half of the song kind of, or the verses flipping between the two, where you've got the kind of the creative or the singer / band member talking about, because they need to do this, you need to do this, you need to promote, you need to do this, which
package repackage.
Repackage. And again, so look, this is what 87.
Mm-hmm.
No, 7. So we're what 36 years,
Right.
36 years ago. So, and I think again, I was listening to a podcast today about kind of the more modern day stuff and particularly with the way the music is at the moment, in terms of trying to get to an audience or to a target audience, things like particularly it's TikTok that gets the creative stuff in, and in order to try and get the attention, you have to the musician have to become content creators. So you have to kind of create these videos to kind of hook people in and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And there's quite a few.
And that's not what they're songwriters. They're performers. Yeah. They're not content creators.
Yeah, I think some of the acts seem to like really get into it and kind of seem to have a lot of fun in doing that, to creating a kind of brand identity which like helps kind of sell records or get fans and stuff. But then you've got some that don't really want to do that. They just want to go and just do what they want to do. But they are missing out on perhaps potentially breaking free of stuff, which, and I think some of the stuff that Morris is singing about in this song, like they still kind of have to do. So like Climb Tour, really Please the Press in Belgium, World Tour, and he, like there's a bit where he goes Media Whore at one point. But I think that's still kind of apparent now. That's still kind of apparent now in terms of
for sure
what they need to do and stuff.
I always wondered if this song was about Ian Curtis, which I know now it isn't, but I had wondered for the longest time if this was written about him, just because it's all about that. It's all about the record label expectations, and Ian Curtis had killed himself just before going over to the States for the American tour, and it just seemed fitting for that, but it's not. It's not about Ian Curtis. But when I listen to it, thinking about Ian Curtis, it fits, It fits that it could be On Their Hands a Dead Star, and Oh, the Plans They Weave, and Oh, the Sickening Greed,
Yeah, that kind of sickening greed line, when you think about the kind of perhaps the attempt to cash in on what's gone and stuff. And I can definitely see where you could probably see like with the Ian Curtis stuff, but then again I think they kind of moved into but then I think they kind of moved to New Order, and the rest of the band moved to New Order, and to try to kind of carry on and did their own thing. But
I mean, literally the next week they continued with their band practice, which I mean is so. They were so young, of course. That was what they did, and look at now we get New Order, right?
Yeah,
which I love.
But I think in the stuff like particularly on Monday stuff, you've got, for example, David Bowie or even Michael Jackson or even George Michael, or like these kind of key icons that in music that have left and deceased. Or Tupac Shakur, for example, like that seem to be, or someone's constantly releasing stuff, either greatest hits or repackaging things and releasing stuff or releasing demos. Oh, we found these kind of demos that we've never remixed and that stuff. And I think that's another thing. I think that's kind of, I think the song's critiquing or commenting on in terms of So it's the At Last a Dead Star. It's the which is kind of like a morbid look to it, but there's also it's something that like I can easily see modern day Morrissey. I said I was going to bring him up. Modern day Morrissey will probably comment on the fact that someone's cashing in on someone's death again, which happens and stuff.
Sure.
But again, that thing always happens. Like they always say that there's a massive upswing in Spotify stats when an artist has kind of recently passed, and that's part of the grieving process. I think it's part of it's like part of the grieving process for fans at least. But it's just like another facet of, again, Morrissey's kind of multi-layered songwriting that somehow has managed to transcend and stay relevant.
Right. Yeah. Who knew? I mean, who knew? I think at the time they knew, and people knew, fans knew that they were writing important things, important songs, and they were an important songwriting duo, I don't think it's too wild a notion to put them up there with McCartney and Lennon, and here we are this many years later, we're still talking about them, and this is still what I would call a masterpiece. I don't know. I think that lots of people would put this in their top records. Maybe not their top 3, their top 10, but it's definitely the Smiths are up there in top bands of all time for sure.
Yeah, so that's a few of the songs that we spoke up talking about. In terms of the reception of the album, I think it's done quite. It did like majority. It didn't go through Mac's stuff, it's a lot. There's a lot of fours, a lot of 4.5s. The Chicago Tribune gave it 2 out of 4. Pitchfork gave it 8.3. Even that, but that's for the whole collection. So Pitchfork, which I usually like to bring up, that review is for the complete collection that was released. So so the review kind of breaks up each album. So there's only about a paragraph on this one, and they just more or less talk about Johnny Marr wanting.
And what did they give it? Sorry, what did Pitchfork give it?
8.3, which is that's for the whole thing,
for the whole Smiths collection.
That's the complete collection that was released in about 2010, I think.
Yeah,
there was a box. There was a box set, wasn't there? I think there was like
is that
with
good
everything.
for Pitchfork?
Sorry?
Like, is it hard to get a 9 out of Pitchfork, or like how is that in relation to Pitchfork?
Yeah,
Reviews?
So like, the Pitchfork review is something I end up bringing up each episode now. So Pitchfork is quite difficult. I think. They gave Taylor Swift's Reputation 6 point something, even though it's then again though they did give at the time of recording our latest episode is Doolittle by Pixies. They gave that 10.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
okay,
they gave that 10, but then that album that we covered on the podcast, that's the highest score they've given. Lowest score, but they've given lower scores to other albums. I think Mika's Life in Cartoon Motion was given a 1.5, which is quite bad for Pitchfork, because a 6 for Pitchfork is usually an 8.8 or something for other magazines.
I mean, Doolittle deserves. I don't like personally. I wouldn't give Doolittle a 10, but I can see how Doolittle would get a 10. Yeah, I think the Smiths collection should get a little higher than an 8, but whatever. I'll take that on with Pitchfork.
Who's trying to Pitchfork, which Pitchfork's going get
out of here. Mm-hmm.
It ranked number 3 among Album of the Year for 1987 in the annual NME Critics Poll. Girlfriend in a Coma ranked 11 amongst the songs of the same year. In 2000, it was voted number 601 in Colin Larkin's all-time top 1,000 albums. Reviewing the album for AllMusic, Stephen Thomas Erlewine said it was a subtly shaded and skilled album, one boasting a fuller production than before. While it doesn't quite match The Queen is Dead or The Smiths, it is far from embarrassing and offers a summation of the group's and considerable strengths.
Well, far from embarrassing. That's a great review, isn't it?
On the album charts, it got to number 2 in the UK, got to 28 in Australia, 16 in Europe, 20 in Holland, 33 in Germany, US Billboard 55. Wikipedia doesn't have a Canadian chart position for it, unfortunately. I'll be interested to see that. It's got gold in the UK with 100,000 and sold 500,000 in the US, reaching gold. So again, it's done quite well. I'm gonna guess the answer to this question. But have you ever seen the Smiths live?
I have not seen the Smiths live.
No.
I've seen Morrissey live a few times, but I have not, unfortunately, ever seen the Smiths. Still holding out hope, though. Still holding out hope.
I mean, that's a question. That's a question that I asked. Like, I would love to see them live, but again, do I want to see Morrissey live? That's the question. That's my big conundrum.
Mm-hmm.
So
I would be there in a second. Like I said, I would max out my credit cards to make sure that I had tickets and a flight, and I would be there.
I think they've been offered low. They've said they've been offered stupid amounts of money.
I'm sure they have.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
They're just too darn stubborn.
Yeah. But then again, I think I don't think it's just Morrissey either. I think Johnny Marr probably feels the same way. In terms, which on the one hand is perhaps quite annoying for people who kind of want to see them live. On the other, it's kind of almost refreshing to see someone who's not trying to cash in on the nostalgia stuff, which is both a kind of good thing and a bad thing,
for sure. And I think as much as I would love it, and I say I would hop on a plane, which I would, I do kind of admire them for not. There's some things that are better left where they are, for sure. Yeah. Although, I mean, I've seen Morrissey recently and he's still phenomenal live. He sounds amazing. His voice is incredible. And I think it would be an amazing show. I don't think that it would musically be anything other than brilliant. So there's that, which makes me want to see them.
Mm,
But yeah, who knows? I think
yeah.
in the Set the Boy Free book and Johnny Marr's book, he talks about, I forget when the book came out, maybe 2016, I think. But in there they had he and Morrissey had beers together recently from when the book went out, and they had talked about the possibility of a reunion show. And then Morrissey ghosted him, is what he says. They had a conversation, and then Marr texted him a day or two later, and he never heard back from Morrissey. So
I also think that I think Johnny Marr's also, like, as we mentioned, I think ideologically, politically on like the
yeah,
opposite end of
yeah,
Morrissey as well. So
for sure.
I've got the sense that they probably got the relationship. They could probably kind of have a catch up and see how they're doing. But then
That's about it.
yeah, and then like I said, like Morrissey was just like, oh yeah, I've done that now, can't be asked anymore. Which, from the sounds of it, it sounds very much in character. So
Yeah,
for Mr. Morrissey himself,
I think so.
I mean, I'd love to have seen him in the heyday. I think I'd probably be more open to seeing Johnny Marr, I think, solo than perhaps Morrissey.
hmm
There was in March like a kind of like quite a Smiths tribute band that was like doing a tour, and there was playing in Birmingham.
hmm
In a venue that's only about 20 minutes down the road from me, but I only found out really late, and there wasn't any tickets left, and I was like, because I was there going, ooh, because I've never really listened to much or seen much tribute acts. But then there was
hmm
like, but then these I can't remember what the name of them were, but like it was like a quite a well reviewed Smiths tribute act,
Cool.
and that apparently, like, I think it was sold out in the end, and
hmm
I was like, I almost went to go and see them. So if they're going around again, I might potentially go and see a Smiths tribute act. I think.
I think that'd be fun.
Yeah. The only other thing that was interesting that I never knew was a thing until afterwards was Rick Astley and the band Blossoms, an indie band here. I don't know if you heard of Blossoms or.
No, but I did see something about Rick Astley.
Yeah, so they ended up doing a couple of shows where it's Rick Astley and the indie band Blossoms doing full sets of Smiths covers.
Right.
So yeah, which on paper sounds really good, even though Johnny Marr afterwards was kind of like, well, they never asked me.
Right. I
Yeah,
think that was what I saw was Johnny Marr's tweets about it.
yeah. So Johnny Marr, but from what I saw, there actually was pretty good.
hmm
Kind of pretty good. Kind of like less tribute act, more covers, kind of more cover celebration stuff, and
hmm
but Johnny Marr, I've got a feeling that I think that if Blossoms had probably asked Johnny Marr, I think that he probably would have been, his arm could have been twisted to actually
Sure.
played with them.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've always had the assumption that Johnny Marr's kind of tweets about it. I think he probably would have been up for it. I think it was perhaps if it was for charity or something. I think he probably would have been up for it.
Yeah. Maybe he just felt left out.
Yeah, but
Is Rick Astley English?
yeah, I think so. Yeah,
Oh, is he? Yeah.
but yeah, but I think because he had like a kind of, say, a career renaissance. I think I can't name any other song apart from "Never Give You Up," but
Right.
yeah,
Same.
but it just seems to be on the cultural zeitgeist still. But
Huh.
so people who listen to this album and then want to listen to other Smiths albums, where would you recommend they go to next?
I would recommend they start at the beginning. They go with the self-titled for sure, and then work their way chronologically from there to Meat is Murder, and then Queen is Dead, and then end at Strangeways. I mean, there is Hatful of Hollow and Louder Than Bombs in there, and Rank as well. But the proper four is yeah, are their discography.
I'll probably always sing the praises of Queen is Dead. I love that album. I love Queen is Dead. Again, I can't think of any songs on that I'd skip at all.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's any ones on there that I would skip either.
Yeah, the only drawback I've got is that I still think that those last two songs are the wrong order.
Right.
Yeah, one of my favourite songs of all time. There Is a Light. There Is a Light should have ended that album. It's such a good closer.
It is.
And I've never kind of liked how Some Girls Are Bigger Than Others has ended. I think that's much better when it's using another song, which should always be There Is a Light That Never Goes Out, and that is the hill. I will die on that hill.
Yeah. Well, you keep dying on that hill.
Yeah, but that album, I love that album so much.
It's a great one for sure.
Yeah, but then again, they're all good. So if you listen to this and you'll listen,
they're all brilliant, and I think that's why I say start at the first and work your way from there, because you want to just like get to know them all. They're all different and they're all brilliant. They're all so good. But yeah, if you've never listened to the Smiths before, then start with Queen is Dead. I would say that's the most it's the jauntiest, and it's the like. It's got the most, I mean, to have Cemetery Gates and Boy with the Thorn in His Side, like those songs are so, so good.
Yeah, there's a Big Mouth. And again.
Yeah, Big Mouth.
Yeah. And again, There Is a Light is the one where they're outside the Salford Working Men's Club, I think.
Yep.
Which is still there. And there are people who still go and take photos out of it, which.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that'll be on your Manchester tour for sure.
It will absolutely be on my Manchester tour.
Yeah, yeah. But so those are the other ones. So now we're here for the ultimate question, the most important question.
Yes.
The song for the Spotify playlist. Now, for anyone who's not listened to this before, what this is, I'm going to ask Robyn to pick one song from this album to be immortalised forever on the Spotify Hall of Fame playlist. I can't veto that choice. Whatever Robyn says goes. So, Robyn, which song are you going to be sticking onto the playlist?
There's only one song for me that has to absolutely go on this playlist, and that's Paint a Vulgar Picture.
Paint a Vulgar Picture.
It is it's perfect. It is a perfect song in every way, and it 100% needs to go on this playlist.
Okay, so as I stick that onto the spreadsheet of to-do list, so Paint a Vulgar Picture joins will follow Nowhere by Therapy and Deeper Than Love by Colin Green and Monkey Gone to Heaven by Pixies. So
I love it.
Yeah, so that's the latest to go onto the playlist.
Great.
So
I feel honoured.
So we are at the end of our chat, Robyn, and it's been absolutely fantastic to finally chat about the Smiths. And and also quite perhaps listening to the album that I kind of the least familiar with as well, so it's been nice to kind of get into it.
Good. Well, thanks for having me on, and thanks for listening. I am always looking for someone to talk to about the Smiths, and to have someone that you were a captive audience that can't tell me to go away right now for this hour and a half or 2 hours, however long we've chatted here. So I appreciate that.
No, it's fine. Thank you very much. So people want to find you or listen to your podcast online. Where can they find you?
Well, we are on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We're called Reaction Brats. And we also have an Instagram page at Reaction Brats Pod.
Yeah, and because you listen to albums as well and delve into stuff. So what exactly things do you do in the podcast as well?
Well, Reaction Brats is a podcast that I do with my husband, and we pick records. It's kind of random. So sometimes it's records that we've recently bought. Sometimes it's a show that we've gone to see or we're going to go see. So for instance, our last episode, we're about to see the Lemonheads. They're coming here to tour It's a Shame About Ray. And so we did an episode about that record. So we go track by track, and we listen to a bit of that track, and then we talk about it. Not unlike what we've done here, but we go track by track, and we do one record, and we talk about kind of our memories of where we were at the time, or that kind of stuff. So a lot of times I don't know, sometimes we agree, sometimes we disagree, and it's fun and it's funny, and it's we love it. We love spending that time together, and so yeah, check it out if you can. It's a fun thing that we do when we can.
Yeah, I think because I listened to your Lemonheads one, and I thought it was quite nice, and particularly with going back to the memories of the first listened to it, and I think she also posted pictures, I think, of a young you wearing like a Lemonhead shirt. And
Yeah. So that was an interesting one because I was, I think, 15 when I first started getting into the Lemonhead. So it's, 15, 16, 17-year-old me in a Lemonhead shirt and concert ticket stubs and, just kind of where we were at that point in our lives whenever we're talking about whatever record it is that we're talking about.
Yeah. So, please do go and give Reaction Brats a listen when you do. Once you've listened to this podcast, of course. I need to think of me first, don't I?
Mm-hmm. This has been great.
Yeah. Once you've shared all the attention on me, feel free to go and share the attention.
Don't forget about Matt.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But do go and check him out. So, Robyn, and that is it. We're at the end of the conversation. I just want to say thank you ever so much for coming on to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. This has been so fun.
You've been listening to Pick a Disc, and I've been your host, Matthew Latham. Our theme music is Pump by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com. Pick a Disc is hosted by the We Made This podcast network, and you can find them on www.spreaker.com/user/WeMadeThis. You can find the Pick a Disc show site on www.spreaker.com/show/pickadisc. You can find us on all the usual social media type places like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter under Pick a Disc. You can also email us on pickadisc@gmail.com. Until next time, happy listening to all those discs that you are picking. Goodbye.
Do you believe in the existence of X-Files podcasts? Then the truth is in here. I'm Tony.
I'm Sarah.
I'm Carl.
And I'm Armaldrake.
And the X-Cast is devoted to all things X-Files, such as in-depth episode discussions.
I love the 8th season being like, no, you're saying goodbye. And that's something pop culture doesn't do enough.
Interviews with many of the cast and crew from the show.
I had to audition repeatedly. I mean, I went in, I read for Chris and Frank. First I read for the casting director, Rick. And then I made it past that hurdle and read for Chris and Frank. Had a lovely meeting with them.
And special roundtable chats, commentaries, and fun bonus episodes.
But this is great. Mulder just having no idea what's going on.
On this beautiful boat with people not really speaking English.
You can find us on the We Made This podcast network, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all good podcast players.
We'll see you in the basement. But until then,
trust
no
one.